Hi again. In this short presentation, we're going to review what is expected of you in your freshman composition course. So this slideshow pretty much just will give you a brief overview as to what to expect in your college writing classes, as well as your responsibilities as a college writer. Now, this is an English writing class, but just know that a lot of the strategies and skills that we're going to discuss in this slideshow and for the rest of the semester will be easily applied to not just other classes, but to, real world writing in general. So let's begin. College writing. What to expect in your composition course. This short presentation will provide you a brief overview as to what to expect in your college writing courses, as well as your responsibilities as a college writer. So something you want to make sure to do is to break away from formulaic writing. Miss Via, what do you mean about, what is this? What is formulaic writing? So some of us might be incoming students from high school while others are returning students. But just to give a brief understanding is formulaic writing is that listing type of writing. And I think we're probably all familiar with this. Maybe we're not realizing we're familiar with this. But overall, it's the organizations of our essays. Most of our essays might be 5 paragraphs, but the 5-paragraph style is a little different, and that's what we're going to go over right now, and that's what we want to avoid in college writing, because it is very formulaic. So in college, the organization of our essays stems beyond the typical 5-paragraph list model. There are some similarities. There's an intro, a body, a conclusion, but the organization within the body paragraphs themselves are different. So first things first, what is an introduction? So the introduction provides the following details. It draws the reader in other words, it provides a hook. It provides context or background information. It lets us know the rhetorical situation, the purpose of the writing, who the audience is, those sorts of things, and we'll cover this more as the semester progresses. And it presents a clear thesis, or an argument, or claim. That all means the same. The body of the essay, however, is a little different. So each paragraph in the essay should clearly support the thesis, but each paragraph doesn't have to make a claim. And what I mean regarding this is not every paragraph has to make an argument. A paragraph could just provide more context, or it could by providing like historical information and things like that. Some other examples are providing an analysis, such as a comparison, or it can provide an actual claim. It can be making an argument, but don't feel that your essays the paragraphs in your essays have to make arguments. So remember the outline that was presented in the college writing page? Kind of thinking back to that, it showed the potential thesis statement, and then following that showed examples of what each body paragraph might mean. The organization of that list goes beyond the listing. So what I mean by listing, again, is what the 5-paragraph model does. For example, obviously your theses are going to be much more complex than this, but it's just a basic example. So the thesis here is, I enjoy school because A, B, and C. So in the listing model, this will say that your first body paragraph will be just on A, your second body paragraph will be just on B, and your third body paragraph will be just on C. That's what you want to avoid. Because it doesn't allow for complex ideas to really flourish in your writing. And now that we're in college, we want to make sure that our ideas are complex and fully developed. As far as conclusions should offer more than just a summary of the essay. So I think we all have had an understanding that the conclusion should summarize the work as a whole. Yes and no. To put it a little bit to put it in a different light, it should synthesize. And synthesize just means recapping what went on rather than summarizing everything you've already said. So one way to do this would be to play the so what game. By the end of your essay, by the end of presenting all of your information in the body paragraphs, you should enlighten your reader with why this information is possible, or important, I should say. So by the time you get to your body paragraph, your conclusion, ask yourself, so what? Why should your audience care? Why should your reader care? And make sure you answer that question in your conclusion. Another way of writing or developing your conclusion would be to link back to your hook. If you provided a very engaging, which you should, but if you provided a very engaging way of interesting your readers, go back to that so your ideas come full circle. And also explain how the points you made support the thesis. So in no way should you just be explaining what you already said again in different words. Rather, you should be concluding how the ideas already presented further support the thesis. And you may also want to point to larger issues regarding your topic. You can also provoke questions, make a call to action, or provide solutions to the topic that you're discussing or presenting in your essay. So now that we've kind of gone over what is the basic structure of the essay, how do we not list our arguments or claims, what do we do now? So when you're getting ready to write a college essay, you have to remember to practice the following steps. So one, you want to make sure to really understand the prompt. I'm sure you're getting close to reviewing the Essay 1 prompt, so make sure that you're carefully reviewing the question that's asked. Review the requirements, the rubric. You know what the assigned readings are about. You've annotated them. You understand the purpose, why they were written, and always ask for clarification. Please email me at post on the course questions discussion board or speak with a tutor. The second thing you want to do is know the context. So the context, by context I mean understand the arguments in the texts that you are responding to. So that means just pretty much knowing, in other words, know the general conversation regarding the topic at hand. So for the first essay assignment, you're going to be asked to discuss fixed and growth mindsets. So you're going to want to maybe do a little bit of research, not necessarily to put in your essay, but just to expand the breadth and depth that you have regarding the topic, so that you'll know what other people are saying. Are schools utilizing this? Do kids understand this information? Just so you have more background information when writing. And also know where you stand. At some point in the semester, we're going to be reading complex readings, and you might not necessarily argue. Oh, someone was at Disney. You might not necessarily agree with someone's argument, and that's totally fine, just as long as you know your position and the other's position. And if you disagree with what's being presented, know the context of your side of the argument. Once you understand the content, or the context, I should say, it's time to start pre-writing. So organizing your ideas in lists, tables, and outlines are very helpful. Comparing your argument to another's, and arguing for or against the topic. And this last point is what always really helps me really develop my arguments. I always try and put myself on the other side, in the other side's position, trying to see the counter argument from the other end. That way, I can really dissect why would people believe this opposite side or the opposing side, and how we, the people on my side, and obviously I shouldn't be saying we, I don't want to assume that everyone agrees with me, but how I can really argue against the counter argument or offer a rebuttal. And then after you've started your pre-writing, you've made your tables and such, you want to start drafting. You really want to develop your thesis. and create an outline similar to what we saw on the college writing page to help you start writing your paragraphs. And once you already know your thesis statement and you've written your body paragraphs, that's when I suggest you write the introduction and the conclusion. And I know at some point in the semester I might sound like a broken record, but I really suggest that you write your introductions and the conclusions until you wait to write them until the very end. For the reason being is that the purpose of an introduction is to introduce the topic at hand. And sometimes I find that students, as well as myself, get stuck or writer's block at the very beginning because we don't know what we want to say. Well, I think that's pretty obvious because we haven't written what we want to say. So leaving the introduction to the end is probably a little bit better if you feel that you're the type of person that gets writer's block at the very beginning. And the last thing I want to point to is revise times 3. So for every essay, you should make it a point to revise 3 times. The first time you revise should be the first draft. So once you complete your first draft, read it yourself, revise, and make sure that it's hitting all the points in the rubric and it's answering all the questions in the prompt. And then participate in a peer review, which we will be doing. And once you've completed the peer review, revise your work. And then take a break. After participating in the peer review, you will have a week to submit your essay. So I would say take 2 days off if possible. Don't look at your paper, don't think about it, forget everything. Well, not really, but just take a break. Then go back and revise, because when you do, you'll have you'll be looking at it through a new set of eyes, and that'll really allow you to see the weak points or the holes in your writing. So, again, the information presented here isn't necessarily just for an English composition course. This could be applied to anything. It could be applied to your psychology essays, your research essays. I saw in a discussion post that a few of you were interested in engineering programs. Believe it or not, engineers do have to write. I worked exclusively with engineers for 2 years, and they were surprised they had to write and revise constantly. So just remember these strategies. Also, another thing to note is everyone, at some point you're going to realize what works for you, what doesn't. You'll think pre-writing, oh, I don't need it. You can start straight into the draft. That should be fine if you know that works for you. Some people need outlines. I'm that type of person. I love making outlines. I like making outlines because it really lets me see where my body paragraphs are leading to. And then sometimes if I get writer's block and let's say my first body paragraph, I already know what I want to say in my third body paragraph, so I could just start writing in my third body paragraph. So again, the pre-writing strategies, all these strategies really are useful, and you should remember to use them when writing. And the last thing I want to emphasize on is remember to break away from that formulaic writing, the A, B, and C that we went over a little bit ago, because it doesn't allow room for complexity. It doesn't allow you to really develop your ideas. So if you have any questions regarding this slideshow, make sure you reread the college writing page, and if you have any questions after that, please post on the discussion board or email me on Canvas.